Hello.
My mic is not even turned on. Okay. Greetings.
Greetings.
I think we might have lost some people in translation.
Am I under the assumption that we're in the back room?
I'm not. Oh, Taylor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Athens, can you hear me?
I can. Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure. Let me message Dominic if we can get started. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get. I'm not even sure if we're ready to get started yet.
Hey, Barry, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. So it looks like on our screen that Dominic is hosting right now, and it looks like the speakers. I'm not sure. Is this the background?
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and get started.
Okay.
So I'm gonna share my screen. Go ahead and share my screen. All right, so I want to do this real quick. All right. Second here. All right, I want to just welcome everyone to the workshop. Let me just get this set up here. All right. Give me one more second. Okay, I want to welcome everyone to the Helping Children Thrive Through Virtual Learning workshop. My name is Barry Riley, and my contact information is right there at the bottom, briley@otfworldwide.org. And we're going to be just going through some really good information on just virtual learning and how you can help your child just really do the best that they can in this situation that we are all in. I'm going to do, we have a phenomenal group of panelists that are going to help us with this discussion. First, I'm going to kick everything off with a short presentation that I've entitled Leap, Embrace the Change. I'm going to fly through these slides, so please forgive me. This isn't exactly what we're going to be talking about during the panel, but I wanted to create a larger framework from which we could understand just virtual learning and why it's important for us to really solve the problems and the challenges to help our kids succeed during these times. So let's leap and embrace the change. So in March 2020, we all watched in amazement as schools started shutting down in our city, across the country, around the world. And then the businesses shut down. You know, restaurants, we could go shopping, we could go to the mall. And then we looked up and the world down. It was like, oh my God, the world has shut down. So for the next few minutes in this presentation, my job really is to help us reimagine, to rethink, to reposition, and to reconnect the puzzle pieces, the missing puzzle pieces to this puzzle that we are all in. So again, I'm gonna fly through these slides, so I'm not gonna have time to really stop and explain stuff. All right, so between 1825 and 1872, the steam engine and the combustion engine were invented. All right, now these inventions, we were still an agrarian society, horse and buggy, cottage products, you know, we made everything we needed by hand. But in less than 200 years, we were involved in a society with planes, trains, and automobiles, okay? Millions of people were moving from the rural life to cities, and they went to cities to work in factories to make everything basically that we needed and wanted in our society. We lived that all the way up until the mid 20th century when the transistor was invented. The transistor gave us television, radio, all kinds of electronic gadgets. It transformed businesses and offices in this country and around the world. And then the microchip came. The microchip transformed our world again. And it gave us all of the technologies and really the world that we see today. All right, now why am I bringing this up? Why am I bringing this up? So in 2016, Ian McCarry wrote an article in Inc. magazine. And the article said, according to top economic and financial experts, 30 to 50% of current Fortune 500 companies won't exist in 15 to 20 years. He wrote this in 2016. Why half of the S&P 500 companies will be replaced in the next decade. Heavyweights used to spend 33 years on the S&P 500 list. That forecast to drop to 14 years. Now this is 2016, he wrote this. This is a machine that makes hamburgers. No people need it. No teenagers need it. It makes hamburgers perfectly. And they're running this machine in San Francisco right now at a restaurant. This machine right here makes pizza, all right, perfectly. And they're about to deploy this all over the country. These are 3D printed houses straight out of a computer, all right? They're real houses, actually, that came straight off of a computer, all right? Here are 3D printed cars. Here are 3D printed cars. They're real cars. They're really fast. I've sat in one of these cars. I didn't drive it, but I did sit in one of these cars. Now, this is how we used to get around 100 years ago. This is kind of how we get around now. This is how we used to communicate with one another 100 years ago. This is how we communicate with one another now. This is how schools, classrooms used to look 100 years ago. This is kind of how they look now, almost the same. Now, yes, COVID-19 has thrown the entire world into, in one sense, it seems like a crisis, and it is. I don't want to discount the challenges and problems that exist, but in another sense, it is a tremendous, tremendous opportunity, bigger than the steam engine, bigger than the combustion engine, the transistor, and the microchip combined. Now, it is up to us to seize this great opportunity ahead and seize it for ourselves and our children, to help them put the puzzle pieces together that will help them ultimately succeed. All right, so thank you for listening. So our panelists today are Noudjal Gamougoun, Asantewaa Oppong, and Taylor Mallory. And I'm not sure if Dr. Coleman has shown up, but welcome, you guys. How's everybody doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Doing well, doing well.
Good. So we're gonna, I'm gonna ask you guys for the next few minutes to just take a minute or two and introduce yourselves, talk about the work that you do with children, and just really like a statement on virtual learning and what you see it being right now. So we're going to start with Noudjal. Why don't you go first? She frozen. So Asantewaa, why don't you go until Noudjal can,
Okay.
we can get her situated.
All right. So, hello. I hope that everyone can hear me. My name is Dr. Asantewaa Oppong Wadie. And in terms of my work with children, I worked briefly at the beginning of my career as a substitute teacher and as a Montessori teacher. But once having my own children, I became a homeschooler, and that's really what our family has been about for the past 22 years, is homeschooling children. I am the co-founder of an African-American support network for Black families on the homeschool journey. We're called Indigo Nation Homeschool Association. And our primary focus is to support K through 12 students as they homeschool at home, give them kind of the tools and group learning and social settings that fills in the home learning experience.
Awesome. Taylor Mallory, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes.
And talk about your work?
Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me. My name is Taylor Mallory, and I'm so excited to be here. I want to thank Barry Riley for inviting me. So yes, I'm a teaching artist slash music educator slash artist in general and producer, but I'm going to specifically talk about what I do for our children, inner city youth specifically. So I am an educator at the Chicago High School of Arts. It is the first public arts school in Chicago. There I am the senior advisor. I also teach a music business course called Professional Development for Vocalists. I teach a songwriting class called All Style Singing Songwriting for musical theater students. And I'm also the educator for the music technology component at the Chicago High School of Arts. Specifically what I do I love to pair whatever the curriculum is with social emotional learning. Social emotional learning is a huge component to not only myself as an artist, but also the way that I educate. I have my own business called Dancing in My Room, which is another online virtual learning space as well. And I'm just excited to be here to provide more enrichment and to get to know everyone else in the room. So thank you once again.
Excellent. So let's piggyback until the other panelists get back on the screen.
Dr. Coleman is here. Dr. Coleman is here.
Oh, Dr. Coleman is here.
Can you hear me?
So we have Dr. Samaj Coleman, who is in the building, in the digital building. So what we're doing, Dr. Coleman, can you introduce yourself and talk about your work with education and youth, and just kind of like a statement on virtual learning and kind of what some of your thoughts on virtual learning?
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm not sure if anybody can hear me or not, but if you can hear me, my name is Dr. Semaj Coleman. I've been in education for about 18 years. Most of my educational experience has been in the Chicagoland area. I have been a music teacher in Chicago public schools
So I can't hear Samaj, so just let me know when he's finished.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. So I've been a music educator in Chicago public schools for quite a while. I'm gonna try to wrap it up because I know he can't hear me. Currently, I am the division head at Oak Park and River Forest High School. And so I am pretty much over the music department, virtual art department, theater department, business department, and the family and consumer science department. So I've been in the game for a while, and I'm very excited to be here. Back to you, Barry.
Back to you, Barry.
Okay. Thanks, Taylor. We're working through some technical challenges, but we're going to keep going. This is virtual. This is what this conversation is about. Virtual learning. We are having an experience with virtual learning right now. So, Dr. Asantewaa, what has been your experience with the, and then Taylor, I want you to answer this as well, with the social emotional impact that virtual learning has had on young people?
Yeah, one of the things that I've really witnessed in terms of social emotional learning is that like you were saying earlier in the program, when the world shut down, this was traumatic for us as adults, but it also was traumatic for children. And as a homeschooler, you know, people imagine that we are in the house all the time, but that is not so. We really use the world as part of our text for learning. So this being at home all the time and only interacting with peers over online and only interacting, say, with other parents who educate online, I can see that it takes an emotional and social toll on children. And there's fatigue, there's easy frustration. You get a lot more flare-ups from children. And you have to just be sensitive to the fact that adults and children have had their worlds jolted, and we're all trying to adjust here and find out how we best use this time.
All right, I think Barry got kicked out of there. I'm going to go ahead and continue the conversation as he comes back in. Once again, let's just do something for those who are here. If you can hear all of us, just put a number 1 in the comments section so we all can be aligned and so we all know. So if you are here, and there we go, 1. There we go, 1. Come on, let's get some more 1s. Look at those 1s. If we add up, we all 1 together. Okay, go ahead to piggyback. What I have noticed as an educator is that students have a disconnect with the educator themselves and also with the curriculum. And I think a big part of it is because we're stuck on this one screen. And I see that there has been a disconnect in regards to why students should do homework. They don't understand why they should do homework. They don't understand what is the purpose of it when they emotionally cannot presently be there. And as an educator, that really hurts my heart because in my classrooms, I never look at homework as homework. I see it as an enrichment tool. So the biggest conflict that I'm seeing with students is that they are not understanding why they should have this enrichment when emotionally they don't feel good. And I think that that's been an extra challenge for educators to not only act as the educator, but also act as like the uncle or the auntie or the mama or the father that may be present or may not be present in their lives. So that's what I've noticed. I'm going to kick it off back to Dr. Coleman.
I think something that you kind of said earlier that piqued my interest. I think what we've lost in this virtual world is really a sense of social emotional learning. And what we've noticed in our community is whatever gaps, as far as Black and brown kids, whatever gaps already existed were exacerbated under this pandemic. Because what we saw in my professional endeavors was that a lot of times students who were already privileged, who already had access to plentiful technology and who already had access to tutoring sessions and things of that nature, absolutely, they were fine in this pandemic. They still had other options that they chose. You have outschool.com, which is a popular option for students who wanted to get enriched. You had all sorts of things. I mean, Khan Academy, you had they had access to still continue their learning. But again, who were the students that were disenfranchised even more? It's those students. A lot of times they're African-American students, Hispanic American students. These are the students who had spotty Wi-Fi at best, who had spotty technology in their homes at best. A lot of those students weren't able to maintain a viable Wi-Fi connection. And what we've also saw is you have a lot of those households who may only have one computer, but have 3 or 4 students that have to access all at the same time virtual learning. So again, what do? When you have a second grader, a 4th grader, a 7th grader, and a 10th grader all living in the same house with exactly one computer, and even if they got a computer from their teachers or their schools. Now you have 4 or 5 devices all logged in to Zoom, which requires a pretty hefty bandwidth. You have all of these computers who are logging in at the same time. Not to mention mom or dad who also may have to access technology in their homes for their jobs. And we just saw that the achievement gap with these students got even bigger, as well as not being able to connect, like you said, Taylor. Asantewaa, you mentioned it too, not being able to connect face to face with an educator who a lot of times, a lot of times teachers tap into our students at a greater clip than even parents do. So what happens when you separate these students from teachers who really care about them and put them in households for a year? We're starting to see that manifest itself social emotionally. And so that's, I think, one of the first things that we have to address as educators. How can we tap into our students on that social, on that emotional level, and then get into the academics? But we have to get that social emotional piece too.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point. I know that Barry is still trying to get connected. So I guess if you all don't mind, and anyone else can take the role, but I'm just going to help this brother out because we care about Barry a lot. So I know I don't want to phonetically mess your first or last name. So I'm just going to say, my sister, if you would be able to introduce yourself, I'm assuming that you work with kids, and then also what is your issue with virtual learning? But at the same time, as Barry was mentioning, what are some complications that are coming up in your classroom? Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Noudjal Gamougoun. Most people call me Miss G, especially my students, but it's Gamougoun if you wanted to attempt it. I'm currently a teacher in DCPS in Washington, D.C. I've been teaching for 10 years, and I'm one of the teachers that's both navigating teaching students virtually and having children in my home who I'm also working to teach. So it's like this definitely different kind of balance when you have your kids at home who are trying to learn, and you're teaching your students, and you have to make sure your children are learning. My experience virtual learning has definitely been mixed. My field is special education, but I also am licensed in math. I have a certification in math, so I work in middle school, 6th grade math. And I'm seeing that there are some kids that are just thriving. I have one student that has some behavior issues. She's constantly in fights. And at the beginning of the year, I saw her record, and but she's so great. She doesn't have the outside stimuli, conflicts with peers, and she is on the honor roll for the first time in her life as 6th grader. And then on the flip side, we have students that are having difficulty blocking off their own personal Netflix and video games during class. And I find myself competing with these other platforms to keep students' attention in class, which makes it very challenging. And also another big thing is students having to self-manage. Yeah. I think especially when we're in school, there's bells, there's teachers, there's hall monitors, there's all these things to help them navigate their day. But a lot of them being at home, especially in the inner city, they don't have support at home. They're watching their siblings. They have to remember to log on at 9:35 for class. And a lot of them are missing classes just because they have difficulties self-managing, which is something they've never had to do. And they've had to learn very quickly with little support. So that has been a challenge that most of my students haven't been able to conquer, even though we are already almost in March of this school year. A lot of them still aren't able to come to class on time, check Canvas for their assignments, all those things that they need to do on their own, even with tools that we give them in the school.
Thank you. And I want to say, Sister G, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and continue this conversation. Once again, for those who are in the building, the virtual building, if you do have questions, I believe there is a prompt in your area on the right side where you can ask questions. And I believe that we will answer those questions as we go along with the conversation. I would like to move along the conversation because I know we only have about 30 minutes left, about things that are actually working in your classroom, tactics that have been working in your classroom that have been effective. I know, Sister G, you have mentioned that, and I would agree with you. There are some students in the physical setting who are maybe have disruptive issues or have situations in class where they couldn't focus, where they are thriving in the virtual. I have 5 students like this now, where I believe the virtual world has done tremendous things for them. So I want to go into the conversation about what has been working tactic-wise in your virtual classroom that we can share with the audience here. So I'll kick it off to Sister A, Dr. A.
Thank you. Okay, so like I said, our family is a homeschooling family, and we meet once a week with our larger Chicago African American homeschool network. So I'm going to come from that perspective. For the network, what I found really is effective is bringing in a diversity of teachers. Students actually stop coming. They have that choice as homeschoolers when they know it is just going to be me week after week. But if I say, you know what, I'm bringing in a storyteller from Los Angeles, like we have done, I'm bringing in a dance teacher. So I'm diversifying what they can expect when they arrive. Of course, you know, I know that there are limitations for this if you're in public school, but as much as you can to keep it fresh, to keep it you know, full of expectations for young people, I think it works to get their enthusiasm up and to make sure that they're there on time. When you say a virtual field trip, like we're taking one tomorrow, and we found that the museums, especially here in Illinois, are just so great with programming, you know, for people to do virtually. When I say, if you're not there at 10, guess what? You're not going to be on the field trip, you know? Yeah, then everyone shows up on time. So yeah, just keeping it really fresh and lively and keeping the our schedule just packed with exciting things.
Thank you. Thank you. I see that we have Barry back. Barry, can you hear us, sir?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So we were just talking about tactics that were working. I'm going to give you the mic virtually. Here's the microphone. Back to you, sir.
Well, I wanna just do a quick shout out for Taylor, just taking the reins.
Oh dear.
Well,
you see when he gave
that was
okay.
Can you hear me again? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So I just want to thank Taylor for Taylor, you were doing a good job, man. I could hear you, but I just couldn't. So Noudjal, you did your introductions, and Dr. Coleman did his introductions. I mean, I want you all to just continue the conversation on what you guys were talking about, because you guys were doing a good job. I'm just here to facilitate the conversation to make sure that we're getting all of the information. We're coming up on 2:30, so we're going to have some questions. Are there any questions? So if the questions can be put in the chat, if there are any questions in the chat, or if
I see one from Katrina. Katrina Starks. I hope I'm saying that right, Katrina. But I don't know if you can see the question. If you want, I can kind of just read it out.
Go ahead and read it out.
Okay, Katrina Stark says, "What is the organization that Asantewaa is talking about? I missed the name. Interested in joining."
Our organization is called Indigo Nation Homeschool Association. You can find us and message us on Facebook.
Okay.
I'll put that in the chat. I'll put the title in the chat.
Awesome. So thank you. And so let's just moving along with the conversation. Dr. Coleman, if you can give us some tactics that have been working in your classroom that have been effective for other students, that have enriched them and helped them be more present. Go
Absolutely,
ahead, sir.
Yeah, and then a shout out to you again, Taylor. Barry was right on, man. You picked up that lance when he, but it's good. I'm glad that you're back, Barry, and we're gonna keep moving. And I appreciate those of you for being patient with us all. So I think just even today is kind of a microcosm of what we've been seeing, at least what I've been seeing. I don't know if my brothers and sisters will agree with me, but we've, as is expected, we do have a lot of technological issues when we're trying to connect with our students. And I think that's been one of the biggest challenges that we've had, just kids, dropping off the calls, cameras not working, mics not working, some teachers, mics not working, cameras not working. So what we've noticed, this is a technique that those of you who are educators have probably heard this, before. It's actually called a flipped classroom. But I mean, we've noticed that it really speaks to the time that we are in. We really kind of started to learn how to flip the classroom. So in a nutshell, I'm gonna try to, nip it in the bud real quick. What a flipped classroom is, the traditional classroom is that where a teacher would be in front of the classroom on a regular Monday through Friday from 8 or 9 to 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, where the teacher's in front of the students and the teacher is trying to explain a concept to the students. And then what the students will do is, take that concept, take it home, and then do homework. Right. That's the traditional American classroom that we've all grown up with. Well, what a flipped classroom is it's a concept where a teacher would kind of maybe record their lecture or explanation on how to do a concept. They will record it, and then instead of doing the homework at home, what the student is expected to do is actually access that lecture through YouTube or through Vimeo or through some sort of Twitch, some sort of other method where the student at his or her time, whenever it's convenient for them, can access the teacher actually speaking to them and explaining the concept at their home. Then what they do is, instead of having traditional homework that they do at home, the students will actually come into the class space. And at that time, the teacher and the student just work on the application of whatever that lecture was. So when you are actually in the classroom space, what you're doing is concentrating, the student and the teachers are concentrating on doing whatever the assignment is at that time. And we've noticed that with virtual learning, that's kind of been helping out. So we've actually started having in-person class again. Now, obviously, we're a school of 3,500 students. So obviously all 3,500 students are not coming into the building, but we have started at about a 25% clip. Some of our students actually coming back into the classroom. And so what we've noticed is a lot of teachers are able to record their lectures. The students are able to look at it at home. And then when they come into the classroom space, those teachers are able to address those students and kind of work on a closer basis with the students, some of the application. So we've noticed, Taylor, that that's kind of been working for us. And I'm wondering if that's a concept that we can continue even once we come back full-fledged into the actual classroom space.
I think that's great. I think that's awesome, and thank you for bringing that in. And I'm hopeful once again this has been helpful to everyone else who is listening. Let's go ahead and continue that same conversation. Some things that have been working in your classroom. We'll go to our sister G, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, we also have tried the flipped classroom method, but again with that self-management and me teaching sixth grade, it's been a challenge for a lot of the students to do that pre-work at home. We've had to incorporate a lot of different strategies. One of them being if internet or whatever's down, we're making sure to post every single thing that we do that day, so that students can access it. We make sure we put the date, the week, the name of the assignment. We have to be really strategic and specific, telling the kids where they could find the work if they're not in class, and make sure we're covering our bases that way. But one thing that I wanted to address is Dr. Coleman, I think you mentioned the social emotional learning piece. And I think that's something that we've really, me and my teacher, my co-teacher, we've really been hitting a lot this year, is because the students aren't here and they're not around their peers, really taking that time to connect with the students. What do you like? Sometimes about pizza and it's not really about math, but we figure out how to engage them. and really getting to build relationships. We've had to take it on in a whole different way, but it's so important in the virtual space that students trust you and know you, so they're willing to take the chances to do the work. So again, that looks like checking in with them. We're also assigned a small group of students that we follow. So I've been able to build relationships with parents. It's forced me to be more proactive, because usually during the school year, I have more parents coming to me, but virtually I'm having to go to more parents. So that's also building those parent relationships and maintaining them weekly has also worked.
Excellent. I wanted to ask, I think we talked about a little bit about the switching up the teaching styles. How, this is just kind of like a general question. How prepared were we as schools and educators for virtual learning? Were we just completely unprepared to handle this? Anybody can.
If I might begin, and I guess I didn't get a chance to put my input. I'm going to answer that question. And thank you, Barry. Going back to just the tactic, I just want to put this out here before we go into that. One of there's two tools I've used in my classroom is Padlet. I'm not sure if you all have been familiar with Padlet. Padlet is a great way to check in with students. I use this little small check-in where I ask students how do they feel between a 1 out of a 10, 1 being horrible, 5 being neutral, 10 being great. And if anyone is a 4 or below, us in the class, we enrich that person. And they can not only do that audibly, but they can go into the Padlet and they can also show their appreciation and uplifting to students too. There's also a gaming tool for students when, curriculum become mundane. It's called brightful.me. I'll put this in the brightful.me and then padlet.com. Those are the two that I have used to create that social emotional learning and to really connect with students before we even jump into curriculum, because I believe that's the most important thing is to connect with them. To answer your question, Barry, I'm sorry, can you ask the question one more once? I apologize.
Well, the question was, were we prepared? And really I'm getting to the issue of how can we be more prepared moving forward to handle virtual learning. And I think you started with some of the apps and the platforms and stuff.
Yes, I don't think any of us were prepared. I don't think I can tell you, just to be transparent, from my school. I mean, we were prepared in the sense that there was a system instilled to at least have a space and hold space for students for, teaching. But as far as like full preparation of knowing all the different apps, that didn't come until September 2020. Mm-hmm. And so, and which I think is valid. The pandemic has all showed us that it kind of shooken up our own routines, which could be a good and a bad thing, or not a bad thing at all. But we weren't as prepared. But to answer how do we become more prepared, in my specific opinion, for me, I have tried to take out the concept of just homework and versus just really checking in, really getting to the root of whatever issue they have, and then just giving the enrichment tools after that. So that's my bid. I'll pass it on to Sister A. Mrs.
A. Thank you. One thing I haven't said up until this point is that I also teach on the college level. And I'm a history professor. And I had to advocate, because I'm not full-time at that university. I had to really, really push to get trained as an online instructor. This wasn't money that they wanted to invest in non-full-time people. But I had a chair that was willing to advocate for me. So again, I'm showing that, the elite people were ready. So I got a rare opportunity to sit in the summer of 2018 on teaching online. And I did really, really well. And if I hadn't had that training, I really just don't know what would have happened to our homeschool network or anything else. Because one, they gave you a virtual classroom. And they taught you how to use, the grading system where everything is online, everyone can see everything. This kind of training was only for their top tier senior professors. And so, yeah, they didn't prepare us, and I just feel like it was something that could have happened. So yeah, if you hear bitterness in my voice, that's true. Yeah. But okay, that aside, as a homeschool parent, though, I was very, very prepared, because we are already looking at how does this child learn? What is his or her learning preferences? And I already knew, say, like from my youngest son, that I was going to have to fill this house with books, because that he's just like, he can learn anything if you leave him alone just to read to himself. I already understood what was going to work for him. And so I think there's a rare opportunity here for parents to step in and become more involved in how their children learn, what's really working, and listening to those children when they're saying, I don't want to do it, and finding out what's the real reason behind it. And there's no child that's totally shutting down, I don't think, across the board without trauma being present. And so if trauma is not present, then there's an opportunity for us to find out, how do they learn and what is working.
That's excellent. I want to ask Noudjal to explain what a 504 is. Can you go into that for the parents that may be helpful for?
Sure. A 504 is kind of a step down from an IEP. It's your student is identified as needing additional supports, but they may not have an official diagnosis that would qualify them for special education services like case management and all of that. So it's a plan for each student to have additional support in their classes. So whereas a traditional IEP, for DC specifically, they actually have a individualized education plan where, they have a case manager and they have meetings. The 504 is just kind of a step down from the IEP.
And a parent can actually do that. A parent can do that. Like, would a parent need assistance from a teacher or something like that? Is it? And then are there some resources online or something that they could access?
Okay, yeah. So I liked what Dr. Asantewaa, I think I'm saying your name right, was saying, is really knowing your child and advocating for your child, especially schools. A lot of times the funding isn't there. And if you're not advocating for your child, they're not going to get the help they need. So it's very, very important to be aware of what your child can and can't do, what their limitations are, where they are performing. And if you see that they're not making progress, even if you're in help or you're asking for help and they're still not making progress, it's important that you're at the school speaking to the teachers, asking to make the help they need. Without you advocating for your child, a lot of times they'll fall through the cracks until they're really, really behind. Whereas a 504 can help them before they really lose a lot of their education years.
Yeah. So I want to ask Dr. Coleman, since he's been at the top of the rung as far as education, he's been a principal, he's been a teacher, he's been all up and down the, you've been assistant principal. How can parents interface and interact with the administration to help this learning, this virtual learning? Because they're, principals, assistant principals, they're dealing with a lot of stuff. And it's going all the way down to the parents. I mean, everybody, and then the students are in the middle, and everyone is advocating for the students. So how can parents really communicate with principals and assistant principals and everyone in between to really help learning, this virtual learning thing happen better?
Absolutely. And I know that's a question that's actually somebody put in the question box. So that's a really good question, Barry. And I would say to any parent who's on this call, any parent who's on the panel, here's the thing. As a parent, you still have access and the right to advocate for your child, whether it's virtually, whether it's in person. Nothing's changed as far as advocacy, right? So I don't want a parent to think that, oh, well, we're virtual right now and everybody is busy and all of that. And I can tell you, Barry, I mean, I'm extremely busy now with this virtual learning, but we're still partners in this educational aspect. And the most important thing is that we get this right for the students. And so parents, I'm just going to be honest with you. The advocacy is all the same. Make sure that you're calling your principal. Make sure if you're not getting the appropriate answers, make sure you call the superintendent. We're still here to help you and your child. Now, I will say, it's always best, and this is the same thing that I say, if there's an issue specifically like with a child's teacher, I would always say, make sure that you at least give that teacher the opportunity to try to fix the issue first. And so make sure that you're in constant communication with your teachers. I know in this virtual world, a lot of teachers have made themselves more available to parents, because I mean, you have to, because you can't just come into a class or school anymore and sit down within 6 feet and talk to a teacher anymore. So a lot of teachers have made themselves more available. But again, make sure that you have all of the information for your child's teacher. If they see 4 or 5, like Miss G, you know, a lot of times when you're in middle school, those kids have 4, 5, 6 teachers. Make sure you know every single one of those teachers, their email address, their sometimes they have like Google numbers where you can call them, but it's not their personal number, but you can still call them. Make sure you have all of that information. Make sure, like Miss G was saying, if your child has an IEP and they have a case manager or a social special education director, make sure you have those numbers. Definitely make sure you have assistant principal or principal information. And if need be, go to the top of the rung. Make sure you have the superintendent's information too. So you can always still advocate, just as like we did last year, the year before, pre-pandemic, still have those conversations with your child's teacher and your child's administrator. And how it works in DCPS, but I know if you are requesting to speak, especially if your child has a IEP, there are certain meetings by law that have to happen. And so I will say for parents, do not let anyone say, well, because we're doing virtual learning, we're not going to have these meetings or whatever. By law, you have to still have those meetings for your child if your child has an IEP. So I would say I don't have enough time to go through everything because I see we're about to, shut it down soon. But I would say wherever your state is, make sure that you kind of research what the law is as it pertains to your student. And a well-educated parent is the best thing that will help your student, because you won't have anybody telling you what can happen and what can't happen. So you can still advocate for your child, and I encourage every parent to do so.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Coleman. All right. So we only have no minutes left. But I want to thank our panel, Dr. Asantewaa Oppong, Noudjal Gamougoun, Dr. Samaj Coleman, and Taylor Mallory for stepping in. I apologize for all of the technical stuff. I'm going to put my information in the chat. If anyone wants to connect with more resources, we have resources that you can access. I put my information in the chat. Email me and I'll get it all to you. All right. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you for getting this together.
Yes, thank you.
This is important. This is needed. So thank you. I want to say thank you, Dominique. I believe is Dominique, our tech person. Thank you to her too. Thank you. This is important.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.